start recording here so that I can show you how to get set up on this assignment. So if you go to your thread for the day, you can see that you have a new assignment right here, which is more Hendrix videos. I'm going to show you how to do it in two parts, what he covers in these two videos here. And we're going to start by getting our documents set up and ready to go to create a composite using some more advanced in the sense that they're a little bit more detailed and easy, or can make more high quality selections, but they are easy to understand because they're still sticking with the concept of masking. Just different ways that you can make masks like we showed off in the 8.1 the other day. So what you guys are doing here, we're creating a composite scene out of a variety of different types of images. And those images live right here in this Ducky Dune palm tree zip file. We've worked with zips here and there. I think the last one we got was the fonts download from Unit 5, the typography. But a zip archive, just for vocab reminder, is kind of like a backpack in the sense that when it is zipped up, it still contains all of the information, like your different binders, calculators, laptops, right? Different headphones, all your different stuff that lives in a backpack, still there, but you can't access it until you unzip that file, which is what we're going to do here. So first you got to download your backpack to some type of folder in your graphic design OneDrive. I am going to call this assignment 8.2 and then double click on that. It should be empty. So you can tell by my path right up top here. We're just going to save it as the default Ducky Dune palm tree zip. And then if you open up that folder that we just created, or that we just downloaded, I mean. I can't read. There we go. Okay, you want to extract this. You want to unzip your backpack so that you actually have access to the information, the papers, the headphones that are inside of your backpack. So if you see this pink extract button at the top of your screen, maybe it looks like this. You want to see that pink extract button. We're going to extract all. Alternatively, you can check the box and right click and go extract all, but they both do the same thing. Pops up with this window right here. This allows you to choose where you want the files to be saved. If you click browse, it'll open it in a new spot, but we can just leave it in the default, which is wherever you saved that zip archive is another name for a zip folder. Save it right here. You can check this box or not. I like leaving it checked to make sure it worked. And then we're going to click extract. So by extracting, it's going to open up a new file window for us to work with. Let me get mine back to all my tools here. Inside of the Ducky Dune palm tree folder, you're not going to believe it. There's a ducky, there's a dune, and there's some palm trees. These are the three composite images that you're going to use to create your scene. And if yours is looking like this, if you're trying to open it from the zippered version, you're going to notice they don't have any previews. They don't load any type of thumbnail. If I go extra large icons, it just looks like one of these guys, right? Anytime you see this pink extract, it means you've got a zipped up backpack. You got to unzip it to access the files that live inside of there. So what we're going to do, the Photoshop workflow, which is another name for the steps that you do in order to get a job done. The Photoshop workflow, instead of starting with an artboard like we do in Illustrator, sometimes you'll start more with a photograph already existing as the backup to, or as the starting point, background, I mean, for your composition. So instead of creating new file, once you open up Photoshop, you're going to go to open instead. And for this assignment, you want to set the dune as the background because we're going to make some different types of masks with these two images to composite together onto our dune scene right here. So you can check that box or you can double click on it. It'll open it up in Photoshop, but the layers are a little bit different than what we're used to. Different types of raster images. This dune is a TIFF, for example, a tagged image format. Sometimes will not open with a locked background and they'll just open as a blank layer instead. This is fine. This is just something you want to check before you do anything, that you have your, what type of background that you're working with here. Since we're, a lot of stuttering today. Since we are creating a composite, we don't need to Control-J the background because this is an image we can easily recover if we ever needed to for whatever reason. We're going to do the same thing for the ducky because we need to make a mask of it by going to File and then Open. click the ducky and click open, and it's going to open it in a new tab. This one is locked. It's just one of those things you got to kind of keep an eye out for. Two ways to unlock it. You can either click and drag the lock to the trash can, or you can just click on the lock if you want to save some time. So we're focusing on the ducky here. We're going to mask this out the exact same way that we masked out the duck's head in the previous. Oh, I guess it's a duck both times. The rubber ducky, we're going to mask out the same way that we did the actual ducky. So just like Illustrator, if you click and hold on different tools on your toolbar to the left here, if it has that little triangle at the bottom, you'll get access to some more detailed or more variations of that tool. So like we got a bunch of different gradients, a bunch of different pens, all kinds of cool stuff. Yours maybe looks like this. I'm clicking on the box with the little triangle with the dotted line around it. This is where a lot of these selection tools live. And I like the quick selection tool. You can experiment with other ones. We are going to experiment with other ones, but my personal favorite is the quick selection tool. So recapping what the quick selection tool does, if you click, it's going to make an educated guess. There we go. That's what I was going for. It's going to make an educated guess based on the contrast of the pixels, where you want this dotted line, where you want this cutout line to occur, right? You can see there's a contrast between the red and the yellow, so it's drawing some kind of line right there, which is good. That's what we want. I can click up here in the head a little bit more. It's going to look for more of that yellow-white balance, and you can see the dotted kindergarten cutout line. Our ants are marching around our duck for our selection to be made. But if I zoom in real quick, what do you notice about the ducky's face? The eyes are cut out, exactly. So if I were to click right, or they're not included in the selection. If I were to make a mask right now, it turns into kind of a creepy sort of visual with the duck having no eyes and the layer thumbnail also creating a creepy visual where it's just eyes, right? It's crossing over. If you press B on your keyboard to get to your regular brush tool, you can see it sets to the paintbrush. The default Photoshop colors of white and black. Remember, white windows on black backgrounds. So whatever you paint in white is going to be visible. It's going to look through the window. And whatever you paint in black, if I hit X to switch to black, let me go larger on this, it's going to make it part of the background. It's going to make it less visible. So I'm going to hit X, bring some of that data back in with some whites, make sure that I'm painting on the mask layer. I just want to bring that eyeball back in here. When you're brushing in Photoshop, Photoshop was originally designed as a digital painting application. You want to think about using your cursor like you would an actual paintbrush. When you're painting, you wouldn't take one single stroke that goes over the entire painting and try to make something fully fleshed out as a result, right? Photoshop's the same way. If you hear me clicking up here, you hear me do it very, very frequently. Lots of very short strokes. That's in case I ever have to undo something, I don't lose a ton of progress. That's a me thing, but it is a good practice to get into for yourselves. So alternatively, if I had just made a selection, let me go Control Z a bunch. Let me just hold Control Z. Actually, we'll do this the old fashioned. There we go. We'll make a quick selection. If I were to take my move tool, which is V on my keyboard, just like in Illustrator is your selection tool, this would permanently move these pixels, leaving just the eyeballs behind in an equally horrifying visual. But these pixels are permanently altered. If I leave this here and I hit enter, and then I Control D to deselect, and then I save this, if I reopen this image, it's not going to have the selection remade. As you can see, there's nothing I can edit here. And it's just these two pixels are permanently changed, moving around with one another. So that's why masking is really important to the Photoshop workflow. That allows the pixels to be stored just in case we ever need to come back and change them later. So a use case of when this would be important, let's say you're using Photoshop to restore an old photo of like your great-grandparents. You only got one photo and you lost it in the scan, which happens. You change those pixels, it's gone. You want to mask to do different things, different filters, different layers. So we've got our duck masked out here. If I click on layer 0 and Control C, bring it over to the Dune tab, Control V, it's going to bring that mask with it. Photoshop, ironically, for being a photo-based, compositing-based sort of app that it is today, it does not have the feature that Illustrator has enabled by default, where when you click on something on a different layer, it jumps to that layer. Or when you click on something to resize it, it automatically has that bounding box that allows you to resize it and stuff. If you do not see these two boxes, then that is okay, because I can't seem to find mine on my screen. But you want to check the boxes that says auto select is checked, and you also want show transform controls to be checked, which is why I have my bounding box visible here. If you can't find the boxes, like if you look at mine up here, for example, let me switch. Yeah, it is. Okay, it's not there. If you can't find the boxes, you can always hit Control T to bring up the transform controls for any layer that you have selected. The auto select feature, the way that does is if I click on the background layer, it will automatically go to that layer instead of sticking on the relevant info on the layer on top. So Control T to get this bounding box. Remember, you do not have to hold Shift in Photoshop by default unless you want to really squash your duck down into nothingness. But you can just resize things without holding Control T. I mean Shift for them to size correctly with the correct aspect ratio. So this is the first step in creating this composite. We will go over the other steps that are outlined in part 2. Tomorrow, officially, if you would like to work ahead, you can, and have less to do tomorrow. But I will show you the part 2 portion on Friday so that you guys can finish this up. But part 1 goes over how to get the mask happening. It's a good reference in case anything is not making sense. But this is where you guys, oh, I forgot to save it. So File, Save As. Because right now it's got the name of dune.tif because it's going to save as this dune. We don't want to do that. We want to save our Photoshop raw, our PSD. Sam, put your phone away, please. Sam, or is that Drew? Sam or Drew, phone away, please. Thank you. We want to change this to be a PSD. We can just take the .tif off. You want that save as type to say Photoshop document, PSD. That's your raw, that's your AI or your .ai that allows you to retain all your layers, retain all your masks. When we get into smart objects later on, when we get into blend modes later on, it'll save all that data in one easy spot called a raw file. So we're gonna click save and then click OK. Right now mine's called Dune PSD, so I'm gonna rename that because I forgot to do it in the last step. I'm gonna go to my folder that contains my work so far, my composite and all of my raws. Right click, rename that. I'm just gonna call it BB for my initials, -8.2 V1. And you can rename it before you submit it to Canvas. But this has my initials, the project name, and the version number so that it's easy to keep track of what I'm looking at. So if you got to this point, or if you get to this point by the end of today, or you've been following along with me, that is awesome. You're in a good spot because we'll go over how to get the palm tree and some of the shadows and cool stuff tomorrow. But this is a good spot to start for now to practice your masking. Cool. Thank you guys for listening. I'll be wandering. You have, what, 5 and 30 minutes to get this all set up and saved. I'll let you leave a little bit early today because I have to sub for Mr. Guy. So if you have Mr. Guy 7th period, you will see me again. But yeah, get your duck masked, get your file saved, make sure you have all the assets exported or downloaded and extracted, I mean. Thank y'all.